She banged on my front door like she owned the place and yelled, "Open up right now or I'll have you arrested." I stood there in my own living room, my hands shaking with anger, but I didn't move. This wasn't her house, and she sure as hell wasn't coming in. A second later, her voice turned shrill as she pulled out her phone and screamed, "Fine! I'm calling 911. Let's see how tough you are when the police drag you out." My wife, who was in the kitchen, froze mid-step. I could see the fear flash across her face. Not because we had done anything wrong, but because we knew how dangerous false calls can get. Still, I whispered to her, "Don't worry. This is our land. She can't touch us." But Karen wasn't slowing down. She paced back and forth on our porch like a warden, waving her arms, already describing me to dispatch as a violent trespasser who refused to let her enter HOA property. That's when the pit in my stomach grew heavier. She wasn't just trying to humiliate me. She was trying to frame me. And the worst part? I could already hear sirens in the distance getting closer. She looked back at me through the window with a smirk, tapping her phone against her palm. "You're done," she mouthed. But what she didn't know, what she could never imagine, was that the person standing silently behind me wasn't just my wife. The same woman she dismissed as just a neighbor's wife was the one who actually trained half the police force she was calling. And if those sirens were heading to my driveway, things were about to flip faster than Karen could scream another lie. The flashing lights filled our street, and Karen threw her hands in the air like she had just caught a criminal. "Over here, officers! He's dangerous!" she yelled, pointing straight at me through my own window. I stepped outside, calm but tense, while my wife stayed just behind me, her hand resting on my arm. The two cops walked up fast, one already gripping his belt, eyes sharp on me. Before I could even say a word, Karen jumped in front of them. He locked me out of HOA property, and he threatened me when I tried to enter. "He's not even supposed to live here!" Her voice cracked with fake panic, and she even wiped her eyes like she was about to cry. The officers turned their heads toward me, suspicion heavy in their eyes. For a second, I felt the weight of her lies pressing down, and my chest tightened. I opened my mouth to speak, but my wife stepped forward first. Her voice was steady, calm, and carried a weight that made both cops pause. "Before you listen to another word," she said, "why don't you ask yourselves why this woman thinks she has authority over private property?" The younger officer blinked, confused. "Private property?" Karen's face turned red instantly. "No, this is HOA land. I control access." "He's trespassing," she stammered. But my wife raised her hand slightly, her tone sharper now. "Actually, officer, I train your department. Both of you should know me. Look again." The older cop squinted, then his eyes widened as recognition hit. He whispered her name under his breath, and suddenly the whole tone shifted. The tension broke like glass under a hammer. The younger officer glanced at his partner, stunned. Karen didn't notice. She kept shouting, "Arrest him! Arrest him now!" But the officers weren't looking at me anymore. Their eyes were fixed on my wife. And in that heavy silence, I knew Karen's little game was about to flip on her in a way she never saw coming. Karen finally noticed the change in the air. Her shrill voice trailed off when she saw the cops' posture shift, their respect turning toward my wife instead of her. "Wait, what's going on? Why are you looking at her like that?" "I called you here," Karen barked, her face twisted with confusion. The older officer straightened his shoulders and nodded politely toward my wife. "Ma'am, we didn't realize. You're the one who runs the tactical response training program downtown, right?" My wife gave a small nod. Karen blinked hard, her jaw dropping. "What? No. No, she's just his wife! She doesn't train anybody!" But it was too late. The younger officer's face flushed with embarrassment. He knew exactly who she was now. The respect in his tone was undeniable. "She's the reason we passed our last certification. Karen, we're not here to protect you from them. We're here to protect them from you." Karen's lips trembled, and for the first time, she took a small step back. Still, her pride wouldn't let her quit. "This is HOA land. You have to remove him!" "I'm in charge here," she snapped, her voice cracking. That's when I pulled out my phone and held it up. The screen lit with the live feed from our security. Cameras, every second of her, pounding on our door, screaming lies and faking tears. The red recording light glowed in the corner, undeniable. "You want to talk about charges?" I said quietly, my words sharp as glass. "Because right now, You're on tape trespassing, harassing us, and filing a false police report. The younger officer exchanged a glance with his partner. That's a felony, he muttered under his breath, just loud enough for Karen to hear. Her face drained of color. Still, she tried one last desperate act. No, you don't understand. The HOA gave me authority, she stammered, fumbling in her bag. She yanked out a folded piece of paper and waved it around like it was a weapon. Here, this is an official notice. He's not allowed to live here. The officer snatched it from her hands and unfolded it. His brow furrowed almost instantly. It wasn't official at all. It was a sloppy fake, typed up with misspellings and no signatures. Karen, this isn't a legal document, he said flatly. My wife's voice cut in, calm but icy. She forged an eviction notice. The moment those words landed, Karen's whole performance cracked. She stuttered, her face red, her voice trembling. No, it's real. It's real. But the sirens that had once been her weapon were now her undoing. Because more cruisers were pulling up, officers stepping out, some of whom had been personally trained by my wife. And the look on their faces as they spotted her told me this wasn't going to end quietly. Karen glanced around, panicked like a cornered animal. For the first time, the power wasn't in her hands. And deep inside, I knew the real storm was just beginning. Karen's panic turned to fury. She spun around, pointing at me again like a mad conductor. Don't you see? He doesn't belong here! I'm the one who keeps this neighborhood safe. You all just listen to her because she puts on a badge in a classroom. Her voice cracked as she screamed, but every officer's expression stayed cold. One of the new arrivals, a tall sergeant with gray at his temples, stepped forward. His voice carried a weight that silenced even the crickets on the street. Karen, you've been warned before about impersonating authority. Tonight, you crossed the line. He lifted the fake HOA paper she had shoved at us. This isn't just harassment. This is forgery. Karen shook her head violently. No! The HOA president told me to do this, she cried, desperate now. The sergeant arched an eyebrow. Then maybe the president would like to come down to the station and explain why you're serving forged eviction notices. Her face went pale. She knew she wasn't just caught, she had dragged someone else into the mess. I saw her eyes dart, calculating, searching for a way out. But my wife stepped forward, her voice calm and deliberate. Karen, this isn't about power. This is about control. You tried to control us with lies, but you didn't realize. Lies can't survive when the truth is standing in uniform. The younger officer, the one who had first looked suspiciously at me, now turned his gaze toward Karen with open disgust. You made us waste resources on a false call. That's dangerous. That puts lives at risk. Still, Karen wouldn't shut up. No, I'm not the criminal here. He is. He threatened me, she screamed, her finger trembling as she pointed at me. And that's when my wife delivered the blow. That shattered the last of Karen's illusion. Threatened you? Or refused to let you break into his home? Because I've got 3 officers here who've trained under me personally, and they know how to tell the difference. The sergeant gave a sharp nod, and the younger officer reached for his cuffs. Karen stumbled back, her voice breaking into a shriek. You can't do this to me. I am the HOA. This whole neighborhood belongs to me. The words echoed down the street, neighbors' lights flicking on as blinds shifted. People were watching. Phones were recording. Karen's empire of fear was cracking right in front of everyone. And just as the cuffs clicked around her wrists, one of the neighbors stepped out holding a folder. Actually, he called, his voice steady but loud enough for all to hear. I think it's time everyone saw what Karen's been hiding. The officers paused, the whole crowd turning toward him. He raised the folder higher. Because this isn't just about tonight. It's about every lie she's told to keep this HOA under her thumb. For the first time, Karen's scream died in her throat. And my gut told me this folder was about to unravel, a web far bigger than anyone expected. The neighbor walked closer, the folder gripped tight in his hands. His face was pale, but his voice carried enough force to cut through the murmurs spreading across the street. Karen's been running this HOA like her personal kingdom, he said, flipping it open. But what she didn't count on was people keeping receipts. The sergeant took the folder, glancing through the stack of documents. His brows furrowed deeper with each page. Fake fines, false violation notices, even copies of forged signatures. He held up one paper for everyone to see. This is a fraudulent lien. Karen, you've been illegally collecting money from your neighbors. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A woman across the street shouted, "That's why she threatened to tow my car last month." Another neighbor yelled, "She made me pay $300 for painting. My door the wrong shade of blue." Karen's face twisted as she tried to shout them down. "No, they're lying. All of them. The HOA gave me authority." But the sergeant's voice cut her off like a blade. "There is no legal HOA board here. These signatures are fake. You created this to extort your own neighbors." The younger officer shook his head in disbelief. "You built a fake HOA just to bully people?" Karen's eyes darted everywhere, searching for a single ally, but all she found were glares. Phones were up, recording every second. Her power, her intimidation was gone. I stepped forward, my voice low but steady, each word carrying the weight of the night. "You called 911 on me because I wouldn't bow to your fake rules. You tried to ruin my life with lies. But you forgot one thing, Karen. Truth doesn't need permission to knock on the door." The sergeant gave the nod, and the cuffs tightened as two officers led her toward the cruiser. She kicked and screamed, her shrieks echoing into the night. "You'll regret this. You'll all regret this. I am the HOA." But her words bounced off the crowd like hollow echoes. My wife wrapped her arm around me, her calm presence anchoring everything. One of the officers turned to her, respectful. "Ma'am, thank you. If you hadn't stepped in, this could have gone very differently." She simply nodded, eyes steady. As the cruiser door slammed shut, the neighbors clapped, not for me, not even for my wife, but for the justice they had waited far too long to see. For the first time, our street felt free. I looked around at the faces, people holding their kids, smiling through relief, and I knew this wasn't just about Karen being taken away. It was about all of us reclaiming the right to live in peace. And as the taillights disappeared, I whispered the line that had burned in me all night. I didn't fight for this country just to be told I can't stand on my own porch. The crowd fell silent, the weight of it hanging in the cool night air. Justice wasn't just served, it was witnessed. And Karen's empire of lies was finally gone.